it isn't obvious to me at all that you can establish a functional relationship with yourself unless you hold yourself responsible for your actions and you regard yourself as a free agent in at least in some regards. Like, obviously, we're not omniscient, omnipresent, and omnipotent. That's clearly the case. We're subject to stringent limitations, and there are situations in which our actions devolve into determinism. That's obvious neurophysiologically. It has to be the way the world works, is that once you execute a decision, there comes to a point where that decision is manifested in something approximating a deterministic manner. I think the evidence for that is overwhelming, but that doesn't mean that when you're looking out into the future and you're contemplating the many paths that you could take, that what you do to make your decisions then is deterministic in a simple manner. I think if that was the case, there'd be no need for consciousness at all. And then I look at how people react to themselves. Is we hold ourselves responsible despite our own inclination for the sins that we manifest, for the manners in which we wander off the path. People wake up at 4 a.m. and they berate themselves for the actions they took that they knew they shouldn't, and the inaction that they manifested when they knew they should have acted. And if we were masters in our own house without that central moral compass, there'd be no reason at all for us to wake up and torture ourselves to death with our moral inequity. And then if you have a friend or a family member and you insist upon treating them as if they're a deterministic agent with no effect on the future and no responsibility for their choices, it's actually impossible to have a relationship with them. You can't even have a relationship with a 2 or 3-year-old if you insist upon infantilizing them in that manner and not attributing to them the choice that enables valid punishment. Let's say, on the one hand, you've done something wrong and you need to be held accountable for it, but also valid accomplishment on the other, which is that you've done something that you didn't have to do, that was voluntary, that's deserving of approbation and reinforcement. And we act that out. And then the next level of evidence seems to be that if you found your polity on propositions other than that, the sovereignty of the individual and the responsibility of the individual, the whole thing goes sideways so rapidly that it's almost indescribable. And it doesn't just go sideways, it goes sideways and down. And so, like, I don't know exactly what to make of that as a proof. You know, it's a strange sort of proof, the proof being that, well, there doesn't seem to be any reasonable way for human beings to organize their social interactions at any level of social organization without accepting those initial, I would say, Judeo-Christian assumptions.